Linda, am I back? Am I still articulated correctly?
You are.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to do a sound check with Darren. Darren, are you able to mute and unmute yourself?
I did unmute myself. And how's my sound?
Sound good?
Excellent. How's the camera view look, besides being ugly?
You are centered.
Maybe in the frame, but not up here.
All right, those of you on the attendee side, we will get started shortly. Got a few more minutes, let a few more people join, probably about 2:31 or so we'll actually get started here. Reminder to the panelists to mute yourselves when you're not speaking so that we don't pick up background noise. We've got a couple more people joining us, and then we will get started. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do some reminders, and after the reminders, we'll go ahead and get started. Panelists, you can go ahead and turn on your video. A few housekeeping things. This briefing will be recorded and also live streamed on TVW. The chat, Q&A, and raise hand functions are disabled. We have several reporters in the queue who have signed up to ask questions, and if there's time after that, we will enable the raise hand function for additional questions. And follow-up questions are always welcome. They can be sent to Chris Loftus at WSP.wa.gov. And with that, recording can start, and the
This
briefing.
meeting is being recorded.
Hi, Linda.
And
This is
now
Chris.
we will begin.
Hi, Linda. This is Chris
Great.
Loftus. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And I believe Lieutenant Boyle is joining us by phone. He was having trouble logging into the video section, so you might want to check that phone list. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Loftus. I'm the Director of Communications for the Washington State Patrol. We really appreciate you coming on with us today. We're glad to take your questions. This is a historic day. And one of the reasons it's been a successful day is because of the excellent communication that we've had from and with the members of the media. I appreciate the solid coverage. I appreciate the seriousness by which you take your jobs, with which you take your jobs, and you've done a superb job so far. And it's noticed and appreciated. A few things I'm going to talk about before I hand it over to Sergeant Darren Wright to give you a basic situational awareness of the day. In general, we've had a very calm day, and Sergeant Wright will go into more detail about that. But we're fortunate and happy that we've had another calm day here on the Capitol campus in Olympia, Washington, and we have not had the conflict and the dangerous type of interactions and illegal activity that we saw back on the 6th of January. So for the two weeks in the interim have been largely peaceful, and we appreciate that. The question comes to many folks: what is the duration of this deployment and this mission? Hopefully, if the calmness of this day continues, this will be a benchmark day, and that we'll be able to announce soon a drawing down of the security resources that are on the campus right now. The day's not over, and obviously the fact that we've had no threats and that we've had no situations arise does not mean that we couldn't see threats or dangerous activity in the near future or going forward. So we're going to, when we do start drawing down, and hopefully again it'll be soon, but when we do, it'll be a graduated process, and the folks, the tactical decision makers, will decide just what mixture of that we need. Right now, we have a physical presence, a mechanical presence with that fence, and of course, we have a robust human presence with the National Guard and with the Washington State Patrol coming in from all over the state and to serve. So you should be getting some information from us in the very near future about what that's going to look like. But again, I'll stress, it's going to be a process, not an event. If you're looking for a photograph of trucks loading up and the fences going away and all the people going away, that's just not going to happen for a while. We've got to make sure that we've secured the people, the places, and the process that happen here in our state's capital. We've had a lot of questions about cost. I covered this earlier in our 10 o'clock briefing, but I'll go ahead and get those numbers again for those of you who weren't able to join us then. This is just WSP cost. This is just Washington State Patrol. And remember, we are just one component of this. So the numbers that I'm going to give you are just a portion of the eventual final cost. And it'll likely be a number of weeks before we have the actual cost for the whole event, where we can get all of the numbers from the various players. But this is just through last night at midnight for the Washington State Patrol. Between January 6th and last night, January 19th, we had spent $1,507,450 on personnel cost. That includes $488,299 for regular time, and then the overtime was $1,019,151. That added to that up to that $1,507,450 cost estimate. There were additional expenditures like food, $37,658, supplies, $1,049. And then we have a couple of broad estimates for equipment, roughly $10,000, and lodging at $52,000. So the additional expenditure estimate is $100,707. You add the two figures together for the additional expenditures and the labor costs that I mentioned, and you're at $1.6 million. The exact figure is $1,608,157. Now, I've been trying to foreshadow that for the last several days. That's a big chunk of money. We know that. We know that that's a big dollar amount. That was a dollar amount that was not anticipated in our budget. This is not like a hurricane or a tornado or an earthquake or a volcanic eruption where we've had to mobilize these resources to fight nature. Unfortunately, this is somewhat self-inflicted. This is the decisions that people have made, illegal decisions in both Washington, D.C. and here in Olympia, in our state capital, that necessitated the need to expend these dollars. So as a group, all of us as taxpayers are going to have to accept that cost. I spoke to our chief, Washington State Patrol Chief John Batiste, this morning and asked him about his feelings about the cost. And the quote was, "Sometimes we simply have to put cost aside and get the job done to keep Washingtonians safe. This is one of those times. Life safety and the safety of our historical buildings, and especially the process that goes on inside those buildings, they're of supreme importance to us. And so this is the money we had to spend, and there'll be more coming." And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Darren Wright to give a situational update of the day on campus.
Thank you, Chris. Sergeant Darren Wright, State Patrol Headquarters Public Information Officer. As Chris mentioned, it's been very quiet here today and the last couple of days. We're very fortunate and very pleased to report that there have been no incidents on the Capitol campus in regards to this, the inauguration and the events leading up to it. As Chris had alluded to, eventually there will be a drawdown, and it will not be an event. It'll be a gradual situation, and it'll be fluid throughout the whole situation. But I want to assure everybody that even after the drawdown, WSP will remain vigilant and ready, just as we always been and as we are now. So just make sure that you know that the democratic process will be protected. We will make sure that everybody is safe, and that we will make sure that that process does go on uninterrupted. So,
Darren, can you give us some information about the arrest yesterday, perhaps?
yes, yesterday's arrest, Damon Huseman was arrested as a result of incidents that occurred on January 6th. He was arrested for assault second degree and for felony harassment for some incidents that occurred prior to the breach of the governor's mansion involving some journalists on the at that protest that day. He's also being looked at for potential charges of criminal trespass for his involvement at the breach of the governor's mansion grounds.
Thank you. And with that, I'll ask Lieutenant Boyle to unmute, and Lieutenant, if you can give us some information about the Fusion Center and the current threat level and the processes going forward.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lieutenant Kurt Boyle. I'm the director of the Washington State Fusion Center. I can tell you right now, the Fusion Center is unaware of any credible or validated threats or targeted attacks directed towards Washington State. We are remaining vigilant like we always are. The Fusion Center is always looking for possible threats from tips and leads that come into the Fusion Center, or from information shared by our other partners, whether it be state, local, tribal, or federal government and the private sector. So at this point, we don't see any credible validated threats towards us, and we are just continuing to assist investigative agencies where they need our assistance.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And before I hand it back to Linda, I'll just remind everyone that just because we don't have specific threats on any given day does not mean that there is not concern for dangers out there. There are groups and individuals over time that have threatened and have indicated that they want to do to disrupt the processes or here in the state capitol. And so we're always vigilant. We're always aware. And as the lieutenant just stated, it's a 24/7 awareness, 24/7 vigilance. So with that, I'll turn it over back over to Linda.
Thanks, Chris. We've been getting a lot of questions about costs from Department of Enterprise Services. And briefly, before I give those, our role, Enterprise Services provides safety, emergency management, security, and visitor services for the 468-acre Capitol campus, including the management of the public spaces. And State Patrol provides the law enforcement services for Capitol campus. So as of yesterday, our total estimated costs for the security measures are $33,304. Included in that are mobilization materials, about $21,000, and of which a little over $14,000 is a one-time cost for the fencing. And then operation costs, including overtime right now, are at about $12,300. I'd be happy to provide more detail if people want it, but that is our broad overview. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Karina from the military department.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Linda. Appreciate it. As Chris said, so far, this has been a successful mission for the National Guard, and we couldn't be more pleased. This has been an extraordinary year for our men and women. We've had over 1,000 activated for COVID-related missions. At one point, we had more than 1,100 activated to support civil disturbance missions. We had wildfire response, and now we have the latest security missions down in Olympia and in Washington, D.C. So the fact that everything went smoothly is good news for us. I wish that I could provide some cost estimates for everyone today. I know that that's on everyone's mind. For us, though, it is going to take a couple of weeks to reconcile our personnel costs as well as costs for various things like food and hotel costs. But as Chris has warned you, it's going to be an expensive bill. Our early estimates certainly suggest that it will probably be north of WSP's final bill. But again, I'll get that to you in the next couple of weeks. And I'm sorry I don't have those today. But more than happy to answer questions, Linda. So I'll turn it back to you and just be on standby for questions.
Thanks, Karina. And with that, I will be unmuting reporters one at a time who've signed up to ask questions. And we'll start with Austin Jenkins. Austin, you should be able to unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, Linda. I think my question is going to be for Karina. And it has to do with just, can you give us some numbers of, or at least rough numbers of what the deployment here for the National Guard has been, and also how many you sent to DC, and have those numbers remained stable, or has there already been some drawdown?
So I might need some help from the State Patrol. On the DC numbers, we sent just under 400, about 400 folks who are currently in Washington, DC, supporting those efforts. As you know, the governor authorized up to 750, but many of those tactical decisions were made, by the State Patrol. I always remind people that when we are activated to support another agency, we become an extension of that agency, and we work under their direction. So I don't know if Chris or Darren, if one of you want to tackle that question, that would be great.
I'll take that on. Thank you, Karina. And also, I'm afraid we're not going to be able to give the specific numbers for tactical reasons. We simply don't want to allow anyone with nefarious intent to know how many we have on the campus at any given time, both National Guard or WSP. But you can, when you look at the situation and realize that we're having a 24/7 presence in an area this large, you can recognize that, as I've said before, people who are using the term hundreds and hundreds, they're accurate. We're not going to get more specific than that, but it's in the hundreds at any given time between the two bodies, the Washington State Patrol and the National Guard.
Thanks, Chris and Karina. Austin, do you have a follow-up?
Why don't you go to someone else, but if there's time before this wraps up, I'd love to ask a follow-up.
Great. Next, we will go to Rachel LaCourte from Associated Press. Rachel, you should be able to unmute and ask a question.
Okay, thank you. Most of my questions have been answered just with the information related to the costs, but for DES, for Linda, do you get a sense that your costs will increase, or is that fencing cost the bulk, or at least it seems like almost half of what's been spent? And then also, do you have a sense yet of what sort of supplemental budget request the state is looking at when all is said and done?
Great questions. The fence is a one-time cost, so that's a static cost. It won't increase. All of the other costs are day by day, so things like overtime and materials and things like that. There are porta potties. Those are costs that are accruing daily. I think it's a little early as far as talking supplemental budget requests. We are not through this. We haven't gone through the drawdown yet. And Chris, you might want to add to that.
Again, the cost will obviously diminish as the drawdown goes forward. But since we're not quite sure yet of the extent of the drawdown and the timing, I can simply say to everyone, though, that no one wants this to be occurring. There's nobody that is profiting from this. There's nobody who is benefiting from this other than those people that we're keeping safe and the process that we're keeping safe. So as quickly as the drawdown can occur, it will, but safety and security still have to be the primary concern. With that said, I'll have to leave it to the decision makers on the tactical and the strategic level to do that.
Thanks, Chris. Rachel, do you have a
Yeah, I have a quick follow-up for Karina. Karina, on the 11th, the governor sent Major General Dougherty sort of his letter basically calling for the Guard to be activated. And I know in that letter, he basically said that it'll expire at midnight on the 22nd. Is your understanding that that is going to remain the date that the Guard will no longer be activated for this, or do you anticipate that it might be extended?
Rachel, I have to double check on that. For some reason, let me circle back with you. It's really going to depend on what the State Patrol needs. And if the State Patrol determines that additional help is needed beyond that date, then I'm sure the governor would be amenable. But let me circle back with you and see if that letter hadn't already been adjusted. Sorry about that. I'll have to get back to you on that, though.
And this, Chris, let me add to that too. I mean, we're all aware of this situation and this event, and it has a beginning, middle, and an end, and hopefully we're closer to the end than the beginning or the middle at this point. But we all have to recognize that there is a new security environment in our state and in our country. That's just a reality. We don't know what that new security environment really looks like yet. There are far more unknowns than knowns at this point. But as we slowly but surely transfer that ratio from unknown to known, and we have an idea of what is necessary, and we have an idea of what's practical, we have an idea of what's reasonable and financially sound, we'll be exercising some sort of plan. And that plan may have a number of the same elements that we are currently seeing on campus, back on campus. We just don't know. And so I don't want to give folks the sense that, this is a light switch event and we're going to be turning the light off soon. This is more like an oven. It's warming up, and we're going to see what we need to do as the circumstances demand.
Thanks, Chris. Next is Dee Dee Sun with Cairo. Dee Dee, you should be able to unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, first of all, Chris, you said, we could say hundreds of WSP troopers this morning, and then now you're saying hundreds of National Guard. Is it hundreds of National Guard members and troopers, or is it?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yes, it's when I say hundreds and hundreds, that's what I mean. That the total force is well into the hundreds, and at any given time of the day, there may be slight reductions or slight augmentations depending on what's happening. Obviously, we have shift changes, and so there are periods of time where there are duplicative resources on campus. But
right. Can I say hundreds of WSP troopers and hundreds of National Guard members?
You can say that that hundreds of WSP troopers have been involved. I don't want to say on either one at any given time what that mixture is. We simply, this is an environment that unfortunately we saw in Washington, D.C. Yes, there are folks who were just protesting, got caught up in the moment, and it was an emotional thing. But there were organized forces that were in D.C. that had a planned approach to overtake a building and to do damage and to do harm and even to attack and harm some of our leaders. So we just have to assume that the same types of concerns are there in every state, and just have to be ready. As I've said from before, our job is to be ready for anything and to hope for nothing. We've had a couple of weeks now where there just hasn't been a lot of problems on the campus, but we've got to be ready and we've got to stay ready.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
and just
Chris.
sorry, and now for my actual question that I had. The chatter that was mentioned this morning about people who were saying that they wanted to cause trouble and they'll just wait until security is gone. Can you confirm that that's something you've heard, and what, is there being a plan crafted, I suppose, in case that's a legitimate threat?
I'll pass that on to Lieutenant Boyle.
Hi there. I'm not sure I heard that this morning about chatter, but right now, we wouldn't have, if people are talking on their own social media sites, that's something they can do, but we wouldn't be just monitoring social media sites to hear people chattering about stuff they're doing. So I wouldn't be able to tell you if people are talking about coming back once security's gone at the Capitol. Now, there's been posted events that are posted out there for everybody to see, to like have a protest or demonstration at different places. When those are posted, that's out to the public to see, to encourage people to attend those. And what we're seeing in the future from those posted events that people want other people to attend is that there aren't any for the Capitol, and there aren't any really for any much happening in Washington in the next couple of weeks at all. So the posted protests or demonstrations or direct actions that people post out there for everybody to see and to try to encourage people to attend, there hasn't been much of that at all.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add to that if I could, in reference to Dee's question? So even after the drawdown, the Washington State Patrol has always been charged with the security of the Capitol campus, and that is during legislative sessions as well as when session is not going on. We will be vigilant. We will have the resources on hand to make sure that the Capitol campus and the legislators and the legislative process does stay safe, all while maintaining the people's rights to express their First Amendment opinions. So that is something we've been charged with, we've always done, and we will continue to do long after the drawdown and after our partners at the National Guard have left.
Thanks, Sergeant Wright. Next, we have Kara Kostanich from Como. This is the last reporter on our list. So after this, we will start the raise hand functionality for any additional questions that people have. Kara, you should be able to unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, Linda. This might be for Chris, it might be for somebody else, but I'm curious if you could elaborate a little bit more on this drawdown. I know that there needs to be somewhat of some privacy for you guys on that, but could you elaborate a little bit more on what a drawdown would look like? You emphasize that this is a different day. What exactly does that mean for the Capitol campus going forward in the weeks to come?
Well, right now we have, I'll just use X and Y. We have X number of National Guard on the campus. We have Y number of Washington State Patrol. In that number of Y of the State Patrol, there are those that are usually and regularly assigned to Capitol campus security. And then there are the augmentation that we've done with folks who have come in from our 8 districts across the state. We also have available to us, and sometimes on campus, what we call the RDF, or the Rapid Deployment Force. Those are the folks that you see in the dark blue uniforms with the more protective gear, commonly thought of as riot police, but they do quite a bit more than just riot and crowd control. So we want to make sure that we give them the appropriate respect for the multiple ways that they serve and deployment. So right now we have those general types of security forces on campus at a certain number, ready at the highest level of readiness because of today's date and the possibilities of disruption across the country. As we draw down, each of those subgroups will start to lessen. Perhaps it'll be more of one group than the other on one day and less. There will be different subsets of each, but over time, and when I say over time, in a perfect world, I'd be able to tell you, hey, by next Tuesday at 4 o'clock and next Wednesday at 10 o'clock, we just don't have that level of specificity. But over time, over the next few days, and certainly over the next few weeks, each of those groups will substantially reduce over time. And what you will be left with is the regular security forces that are here guarding the campus. Again, as I mentioned before, we are in a new environment. We are in a new security environment. So there's a very good chance and a probability that the regular security contingent is going to have to be buttressed in some way so that we can meet the demands of this new security environment. Now let's think about the other side, the mechanical side, the fences. That's another decision. The fences are sometimes they save us manpower because they're doing things that people would have to do, hands-on if they weren't there. But they also create challenges. They create challenges, obviously, and it's probably the least of importance, but for a lot of folks, it's very important. And that's the visual challenge of just seeing something that looks more like Fortress Washington instead of the Capitol campus grounds that they're used to seeing. We all want to go back to the park-like setting that we're used to, but that's a secondary concern from security concerns. But eventually, the fencing will have to be taken down or changed or moved, to maximize its effectiveness. So all of that is the drawdown process. And so I'm just not able to give you, we're going to do A, and then we're going to do B, and then we're going to do C, and then we're going to do D, and E is contingent on us finishing D, and that sort of thing. It's just not that sort of linear process. It's a process that has so many variables that we just have to trust the expertise, both in the military and law enforcement, that are charged with making those decisions.
Thanks, Chris. Kara, do you have a follow-up?
I don't, Linda. Thank you.
Thanks. So we are enabling the raise hand capability. If folks have additional questions, please hit the raise hand icon and I will unmute you.
Looks like Austin raised his hand, Linda.
Yes, I see two. Austin,
Hi,
you
Linda.
should be able to unmute.
Yep. So either First Sergeant Wright or Chris, do you have any more information about how the breach happened at the governor's residence, in particular, just what happened with that gate and how they were able to access it? And then along the lines about budget requests, is there any talk of, in light of the events in recent weeks, a Capitol campus security specific request in the upcoming 2-year budget that would be different than something that was contemplated in the governor's December budget?
Let me answer the second part of that first, and that is, I don't know. That'll be something that we'd have to talk to the leaders of SOD or the Special Operations Division who handle those types of requests. And I know we did have a request earlier and for additional resources already. So I don't know if that request has been augmented or changed because of these events. As far as the gate issue, let me kind of do a broader look at that. We've had 149 unpermitted events since the COVID restrictions went in April on the Capitol campus. They've ranged from just a handful of people to upwards of 2,500 people meeting on the legislative steps. It has not been uncommon at all when people met on the legislative steps that they marched over and did a part of their demonstration in front of the governor's gate. That gate was professionally installed. It was designed for a different security environment than we're seeing right now. It was not designed to withstand scores of armed people coming at it, shaking it, and trying to break it open. Because as you saw, when scores of people did that, it did go open. So we had a gate failure, but only because of the unusual and environment that we find ourselves in. Unfortunately, as I've said before, that unusual environment seems to be will likely be the security environment going forward. And so we're going to have to make changes both in the mechanics of gates and also the numbers of people that we deploy and where they deploy. Those decisions are going on right now. But when the gate did break open and the people went in, I know that there's a lot of folks who looked at that as some sort of failure on the WSP side or some sort of lack of preparation. But actually, if you look at what happened, something that had never happened before, something that had in 100 years of activities and certainly in months and months of really strong protest activities has simply never happened before. When that unforeseen event occurred, you still had the young cadet that was at the guardhouse and the sergeant that was at the front door, and candidly, multiple other security resources that were just not available to the naked eye, working together. No one particular security measure can do everything. It's an overlapping set of security measures, and those overlapping set of security measures that we had taken worked. The governor was safe. The governor was well protected inside the building with resources that were unseen to those coming through. The governor, his family, and his wife were not harmed. The troopers there, the cadet and the sergeant, and then quickly followed by other troopers, and then members of the Thurston County Sheriff's Office. They came in and quickly de-escalated a situation that candidly could have been a deadly situation. It would not have taken much for weapons to be drawn and for far more lethal situations to occur and dangerous situations for everybody. But what you had was, in a short period of time, 20 to 30 minutes, we were able to de-escalate and move everybody out of there. So in that regard, even though it was messy, it didn't seem like it was a made-for-TV movie. It was the real world of security and protection. But in that real world, we completed the mission. We protected the governor and his family. The building was secured. It didn't receive any damage. The vehicles didn't receive any damage, and none of the protesters were harmed in any way. No one got hurt. And now we're in the process of pursuing the folks who did illegal things. People have asked me, is the State Patrol responsible for what happened that day? No, the people who broke the law are responsible for breaking the law. The State Patrol is accountable, and we take that accountability seriously. And we're going to improve those systems so that we can meet this unfortunately changed and elevated security environment.
Thanks. I am going to unmute Jerry Cornfield. Jerry, you should be able to unmute and ask your question.
Okay, Linda, this is for you. I just want to double check the numbers. The fencing is 14,000, a fixed cost, and is it 33,000 on top of that? Or I just want to make sure I got the numbers so correct.
Yeah, the 33,000 is the overall number. Materials, 20,954. Of those materials, a little over 14,000 is the fencing. So the 14,000 is included within the 33,000.
Thank you.
All right, we'll give it another minute here if anybody else wants to raise their hand. Oh, I see Rachel has another question. Rachel, you should be able to unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if you could tell us exactly how much fencing that 14,000 bought. Is it, how many, I don't know, yards or feet or whatever of fencing was installed?
I'll have to check on that number and I will get back to you with it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll give it another minute here. Yes.
Linda, while we're waiting, if there are no other questions, or even if there are, I just want to let everyone know that at this point, we're not seeing a need for further briefings on this. So, but if something does occur and we have a situation, we will certainly call a briefing, and whether it will be in person or virtual, and let you know as quickly as possible. And of course, Darren and Lieutenant Boyle and I are always available to you for your questions. And this is a team sport when it comes down to it. Together, we tell the story, and we try to tell it accurately, thoughtfully, with context and with respect for all. Our as you all know, our motto is service with humility, and humility means that we have to answer questions, we answer them truthfully and thoughtfully. So don't be afraid to call anytime.
And with that, I'm not seeing further hands raised. A reminder that if you do have follow-up questions that were not asked during this briefing, you can email those to Chris Loftus at wsp.law.gov today. As Chris mentioned, we don't have pre-planned briefings on this at this time going into the rest of the week, but we will stand up briefings as needed in the future. I'd like to thank all of our panelists today for sharing your information, and also thank all the attendees for all the great questions and your attention to this. And with that, we will end the briefing. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.